It was a quiet Friday night in Helmshore. Sadie Hartley was home alone, wrapping up a long day. She had just spoken to someone on the phone, not knowing it would be the last call she ever made. Minutes later, something terrible happened. When police arrived, what they found inside her house shocked even the most experienced officers. No signs of a break-in, no warning, just Sadie, and a crime that made no sense. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Sadie Hartley was born in 1955 in Newark-on-Trent, the third of 7 siblings raised in a modest but close-knit home. Her father worked long hours as a truck driver, while her mother kept the household running. From an early age, Sadie stood out, driven, sharp, and deeply grounded in both intellect and compassion. She earned a biology degree from the University of Brighton and built a successful career in the pharmaceutical sector before launching her own thriving company. In 1981, she married Jerry Hartley, and together they had 2 children, Harry and Charlotte. Those who knew her described her as balanced and methodical, someone who led with calm assurance. Whether at the office or at home, she was a peacemaker, someone who preferred dialogue to confrontation. She loved the outdoors, especially horse riding, and her colleagues remembered her as the kind of boss who made you feel like a valued partner rather than a subordinate. Though her business thrived, Sadie's personal life saw its share of difficulty. Her marriage to Jerry eventually ended in divorce. At the time of the crime that would later shock the country, she was in a relationship with Ian Johnston, a former firefighter and part-time ski instructor. Sadie had settled into a beautiful home in Helmshaw, Lancashire, in the affluent Sandbank Cottages area, a quiet, peaceful neighborhood lined with million-pound homes. On January 15, 2016, a colleague grew concerned when Sadie failed to show up for work. Calls went unanswered, and this silence was completely out of character for her. The alarm was raised, and police were dispatched to her home. When officers arrived, they peered through the window and saw a woman lying motionless in a pool of blood. The door was forced open, and inside, they found Sadie Hartley's lifeless body. What followed was described by investigators as one of the most brutal crime scenes they had ever witnessed. Sadie had been stabbed more than 40 times, suffering devastating injuries to her spine, right eye, lungs, and spleen. Even more chilling, a shard from a stun gun was found lodged in the collar of her blouse. The evidence suggested she had been incapacitated before the attack began, and tragically, it's believed she remained conscious, yet paralyzed, during the initial assault. There were no signs of forced entry. Sadie had likely opened the door herself, unknowingly letting in the person who would end her life. The attack appeared to have started immediately after the door opened. Investigators pinpointed the time of her last known communication to 7:30 p.m., when she spoke to a colleague on the phone. Not long after, her killer arrived. While forensic teams gathered evidence inside the house, officers began canvassing the neighborhood. Helmshaw was a secure and upscale community, and almost every home on the street was equipped with surveillance cameras. Reviewing hours of CCTV footage, investigators noticed something that didn't belong: a blue Renault Clio seen driving through the area at suspicious times. No resident in the area reported owning such a car. As investigators pored over security footage from the Helmshaw neighborhood, one detail stood out. Just 4 minutes after a mysterious blue Renault Clio was seen driving past Sadie Hartley's home, another figure appeared on camera, a person walking alone down the same street. The proximity of both events raised an immediate red flag. Detectives began to suspect that the driver of the Clio was scouting the area, confirming Sadie's presence at home, and then relaying that information to the person on foot. At the time of the attack, Sadie was entirely alone. Her partner, Ian Johnston, was in Switzerland, where he was skiing and teaching as part of his winter work. Sadie had planned to join him later in the week once she completed some pressing work commitments. Ian, a former firefighter turned part-time ski instructor, was known for his active, adventurous lifestyle. Though he had been married before, his past relationships had ended in divorce. Ian and Sadie had first met back in 2002. Their relationship began casually and was punctuated by long breaks, often due to Sadie's demanding career. Her intense focus on work had once made things difficult for Ian, who craved more time and attention from a partner. But by 2010, the couple chose to fully commit and moved in together, sharing a home and building a more stable life. When police interviewed Ian, he became a key source of context and critical details. He disclosed that in August 2015, just a few months before the murder, there had been a break-in at the home he shared with Sadie. The incident left her shaken, and she became increasingly anxious about staying alone. Investigators considered whether this could be linked to her eventual death. Had the same person returned? Had the previous break-in simply been a failed attempt? Then Ian revealed something that changed the tone of the investigation. Just days before her murder, Sadie had confided in him about a deeply unsettling experience. A woman had shown up at her door wearing a baseball cap and handed her a bouquet of cheap flowers, purchased for just a few pounds. The encounter felt off, and Sadie was immediately suspicious. She thought back to the earlier break-in and couldn't shake the sense that someone was watching her. The gift wasn't thoughtful. It was a message. Ian then brought up a name that would come to dominate the investigation: Sarah Williams. Sarah Williams was not a stranger to the couple's lives. She had once been romantically involved with Ian during a brief separation between him and Sadie. At the time, Ian was working as a ski instructor at the Chill Factory, an indoor ski slope near Manchester. Sarah, a regular visitor, was younger, just 34, and instantly taken with Ian. Their relationship, however, quickly turned sour. Sarah's behavior became possessive and controlling. When Ian eventually reconciled with Sadie, Sarah didn't take the news well. She responded by sending a vicious letter to Sadie, revealing intimate details of her relationship with Ian, clearly designed to sabotage the couple. But instead of tearing them apart, the stunt backfired. The letter only pushed Ian and Sadie closer, and they soon made the decision to move in together. Despite the history, Ian admitted he continued texting with Sarah. On one occasion, they even stayed at the same hotel at the same time during separate vacations. During that trip, Sarah and Ian exchanged flirtatious messages, even while Sadie was with him. Sarah remained a presence in Ian's life not just personally, but professionally. She worked for a travel company that specialized in ski trips and had an office in the same complex as the Chill Factory. Ian saw her often. Their encounters may have seemed casual to some, but detectives began to view them as something far more calculated. Sarah's personal life also raised questions. She was in a long-term relationship with a 75-year-old man, who notably was married. Beneath her glamorous exterior, investigators saw signs of instability and obsession. With this new information, detectives turned their attention to Sarah's digital footprint. They secured her phone records and began tracing her movements in the days and hours leading up to Sadie's murder. As detectives expanded their investigation, a disturbing trail of evidence began to surface, pointing directly to Sarah Williams. Although she lived in Chester, nearly an hour's drive from Helmshaw, her mobile phone had been logged in Helmshaw on the same day Sadie Hartley received that unsettling bouquet of flowers. It was a quiet but damning clue. Police now theorize that Sarah had delivered the flowers herself, not as a peace offering, but as a reconnaissance mission. She needed to be certain Sadie was home. The flowers, cheap and impersonal, were merely a pretext. It was a test run. The plan was already in motion. Just 2 days into the investigation, police made their move. In the middle of the night, they entered Sarah Williams' home and arrested her. The timing was risky. Acting too soon meant the possibility of having to release her without sufficient evidence. But investigators were confident. Sarah, reportedly stunned by the sudden intrusion, was taken into custody. During questioning, Sarah denied everything. She claimed to have been at home in Chester on the evening of the murder, unwell and resting. At around 6 p.m., she texted her lover David Hardwick, stating that she was planning to have tea and go to bed early. It was a carefully constructed alibi, but one that would soon unravel. A search of Sarah's home revealed signs of recent cleaning, extensive, almost obsessive. The smell of bleach lingered throughout, and yet, beneath the surface, the truth still clung to the walls. Inside the bathtub, forensic teams detected faint traces of blood. Lab tests confirmed it belonged to Sadie Hartley. Hidden beneath Sarah's pillow was something even more revealing: an old Nokia mobile phone. It wasn't her main device, and that made it even more suspicious. The call records showed she had used it on the day of the murder. One call went to her workplace in the morning. The other, disturbingly, was placed to Sadie's business line. That burner phone had been used before to contact people selling second-hand vehicles. Investigators traced the last outgoing call. It led them to a man who had sold Sarah a blue Renault Clio. She had paid in cash. Now, the pieces were coming together. Detectives had the make and model of the vehicle. They had the seller's confirmation. But the car had seemingly vanished. License plate recognition systems had picked up nothing. That is, until one sharp-eyed officer noticed something peculiar in a surveillance photo. A blue Renault Clio was spotted, but the plate didn't match. Looking closer, the truth was visible. Sarah had altered the license plate. A simple switch, turning a 3 into an 8, was enough to throw off automated searches. But it wasn't enough to escape detection. The altered vehicle was found abandoned in a parking lot 56 miles from Sadie's home. Police believed it held critical forensic evidence inside, and they were right. During continued interrogation, Sarah remained eerily composed, calm, poised, and without a trace of remorse. On her phone, investigators discovered an entire archive of personal notes. Obsessive thoughts, romantic fantasies, writings about Ian Johnston that revealed a disturbing fixation. She had masked it well, but beneath the surface was an obsession spiraling into something far darker. And then came the most chilling discovery yet: how Sarah had found out where Sadie lived. Back in early December 2015, all three, Sadie, Ian, and Sarah, had attended a holiday party at the Chill Factory. On that very evening, while laughter and celebration filled the room, Sarah had walked to Ian's car and discreetly attached a GPS tracker to the underside of the vehicle. Over the following weeks, she would repeatedly return to recharge the device, tracking Ian's every move with surgical precision. The implications were devastating. Sarah had not only stalked Sadie, she had mapped out the logistics of murder in real time. Even more haunting, by the time of that cheerful holiday gathering, Sarah had already decided Sadie would die. Unbeknownst to her, Sadie had spent that evening standing just feet away from her future killer, sharing the same room, breathing the same air, smiling at the same jokes. Initially, detectives believed Sarah Williams had personally delivered the bouquet of cheap flowers to Sadie's doorstep. But when they confirmed that the two women had crossed paths in the past, they realized that Sadie might have recognized Sarah if she had appeared in person. That meant there had to be someone else, a willing accomplice. Witnesses recalled seeing a silver car circling the area on the day the flowers were delivered. Inside were a bald man and a woman wearing a baseball cap. As police began reviewing Sarah's inner circle, one officer recognized a car matching that description parked in the driveway of Katrina Walsh. Katrina, 56, suffered from alopecia and always wore a baseball cap to cover her hair loss. She worked as a horse riding instructor and had known Sarah since Sarah was a teenager. They had met through their shared love of horses, and over the years Katrina developed an unwavering loyalty toward Sarah, almost to the point of fixation. She often went out of her way to please her younger friend, idolizing her with childlike intensity. Detectives soon determined that Katrina Walsh had been the one to deliver the flowers to Sadie Hartley on January 7th. Phone signal data placed her in Helmshaw that day. CCTV footage later confirmed both Sarah and Katrina entering a supermarket and leaving with a bouquet of flowers, one that matched what Sadie had described. The evidence was overwhelming. Katrina was arrested. From the beginning, Katrina claimed she suffered from serious memory issues. She insisted that unless she wrote something down, she would forget it within 3 days. She kept detailed diaries to compensate for her memory lapses. But now those diaries were about to become central to the case. Katrina was conflicted during questioning. On one hand, she told police she believed Sarah had committed a horrific act, something her journals seemed to hint at. On the other, she claimed she couldn't remember her own role. Investigators, however, found her memory loss suspicious, conveniently selective, seemingly scripted. Meanwhile, the case against Sarah was tightening. Contrary to her claims of being bedridden with illness on the night of the murder, surveillance footage showed her leaving home with Katrina, walking toward a car. A shoe print found at the crime scene matched boots recovered from Sarah's home. And the most disturbing piece yet, evidence showed that the two women had traveled to Germany together to purchase a stun gun. In Katrina's home, police found her stack of handwritten diaries. Inside them were chilling entries that revealed Sadie's murder had been in the planning stages for a year and a half. One note from August 2014 made it painfully clear. Katrina had written that Sarah would kill Sadie and described her own excitement at being involved. Despite later claiming that she thought it was all a game, the journals betrayed her. The tone, the details, the anticipation, they didn't speak of confusion. They spoke of complicity. Hoping for leniency, Katrina eventually led police to the place where they had buried the murder weapons. Among them, the stun gun, now broken, with a piece that matched what had been found in Sadie's clothing, a blood-stained knife. the keys to the Renault Clio. No longer could Katrina paint herself as a forgetful bystander. Back at the station, Sarah was confronted with the overwhelming evidence and told that Katrina had been arrested. For the first time since her detainment, her confidence cracked. Her composure slipped. She looked rattled. And from that moment on, she refused to speak. The picture that emerged of Sarah Williams was deeply unsettling. Raised as an only child in a comfortable home in Bebington, Merseyside, Sarah had once been the victim of a disturbing alleged abduction at age 13, a claim some questioned. At 17, she had begun a relationship with 57-year-old millionaire David Hardwick, a married man who became her longtime benefactor. He paid for luxury holidays and financed her lifestyle while staying with his wife Rowena. Throughout her adult life, Sarah sought control in her relationships. She was drawn to unavailable men, particularly those who were married, and often attempted to sabotage their marriages. She wrote letters to wives, stalked homes, even fabricated pregnancies. When asked to give up her connection to Hardwick, she refused. The financial security was too enticing. She once described herself in a text as the little psychopath. At trial, both Sarah and Katrina pleaded not guilty. The proceedings stretched over 6 weeks, detailing a murder that had been calculated with chilling precision. In the end, the jury saw through the lies. Sarah Williams was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 30 years. Katrina Walsh received 25 years for her role in planning and aiding the crime. The murder of Sadie Hartley sent shockwaves through the UK, not just for its violence, but for the depth of premeditation, the manipulation, and the betrayal involved. Sadie, a kind, intelligent, and deeply loved woman, was taken not by a random act of violence, but by people who plotted her death over the course of 18 months. She was a mother, a friend, a professional, someone whose life had meaning far beyond the jealousies of others. Her death was senseless, her murder cold-blooded, but her legacy remains one of strength, compassion, and justice finally served. Justice came too late for Sadie Hartley, but it came, and the darkness that took her life could not extinguish the light she brought to those around her. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.